How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we stand Daf Ayin Beis Daf 72 of Masechta BavaBasra, friends. Okay, so today we finish I think I said at the end of the Daf yesterday, the 7th parak of Masechta BavaBasra. That's obviously not the case, but the 4th parak of Masechta BavaBasra, which means tomorrow we start the 5th, which is Givaldi, because, the 5th I think is a long parak. I think it's like 20 Daf, but there's 10 prakim in BavaBasra. There's 10 prakim in Bava Kama, Bava Metzia, Oichet, each of them, respectively. There's 10 prakim in BavaBasra. So after the next parak, we'll be halfway through, finally. We're 70 daf. In what Masechta are you 70 daf into the Masechta? You're not even halfway through the Masechta. The answer is Masechta Shabbos. It's probably the only one. Anyways, now as I said yesterday, today's a difficult daf, but it's okay. We've seen more difficult, trust me. But we got to use our heads today, and it continues from yesterday, so we have to kind of do a shtickle chazar from yesterday as well, because we really stopped in the middle. But okay, here we go. Okay, so what's the notable things from yesterday that we have to start out with? Rav Huna had an opinion. What he said was that if somebody sells his entire field, if Shimon sells his entire field to Reuven, and he retains for himself 2 trees. So Rav Huna says that everybody agrees, even Rabbi Akiva agrees, that he doesn't just retain those 2 trees for himself, he also retains the land beneath the trees for himself as well. Now, which means that if the tree dies, he can replant it, fine. Now, we had asked a kasha from Reb Shimon in our Mishnah, because Reb Shimon says that when it comes to hektish, if you makdish a property, if you makdish a field, so then Reb Shimon says that, so when it comes to makdish a field, so the Tanakama had said that everything included. What does it mean everything? Well, we generally say that if you sell a field, so the pit, the wine press, the dovecote, those things are excluded. But it says the Tanakama, when it comes to being makdish a field, so then all those things are included. Reb Shimon says no, all those things are excluded. The only exception being the grafted carob tree and the pruned sycamore tree. Those things would also be hektish as well. And the question is why? Meaning right, so Reb Shimon would say the pit is excluded, the wine press is excluded, the dovecote is excluded. They are not hektish. The only things among the things that are generally excluded that would be hektish would be the grafted carob tree and the pruned sycamore tree. The reason being that even though technically speaking they should be excluded, but since they are planted in the ground and all of the field is hektish, so memele, they're planted in hektish ground, so they also become hektish. That's why it's a technicality. But the interesting implication being that according to Reb Shimon, when you makdish the field, you makdish the whole field, even what's underneath the trees, because if he retained for himself not just the carob and sycamore trees, but if he retained for himself also the land beneath them, well then why should the carob and sycamore trees be hektish? They should be excluded from the hektish, just like Reb Shimon says the pit and the wine press and the dovecotes are excluded, so should the grafted carob and the pruned sycamore should also be excluded. And if the land beneath them is excluded as well, so then they should not be hektish. Rather, the reason why the grafted carob and pruned sycamore tree are hektish is because the entire land is hektish, including the land beneath and around the sycamore or carob trees, therefore they're nurturing from the hektish land, and therefore they become hektish themselves. So we see Rav Huna had said that when you sell a property but retain the trees for yourself, so it's not just the trees but also the land under the trees, and yet Reb Shimon is saying, right, so that's Rav Huna and Amora, and yet Reb Shimon is saying that when you makdish a field and you keep essentially the grafted carob and the prune sycamore for yourself, they actually ultimately end up becoming hektish, because since the land underneath the trees is also hektish, so memela the trees become hektish, implying that when you're makdish a field, you're makdish everything, even if you kept the sycamore and carob trees for yourself, but the land underneath would also be hektish. You wouldn't retain that for yourself. That would also be hektish, thereby making the trees themselves hektish as well. So that was based. So then we answered it by saying that actually Reb Shimon holds like his Rebbe Rabbi Akiva, that mocher b'ayin yafeh who mocher, that actually. So initially we wanted to say that according to Rav Huna, this idea of when Shimon retains the trees for himself, he also retains the land beneath them, would be even according to Rabbi Akiva, who generally would say mocher b'ayin yafeh hu mocher, and therefore I would think that the land would be included in the sale. So Rav Huna wanted to say that if Shimon retains the trees for themselves, even Rabbi Akiva would say that he keeps the land underneath. But we answered at the end of the daf yesterday that Reb Shimon that actually Rabbi Akiva would not say that. Rather, Rabbi Akiva's general opinion is mocher b'ayin yafeh hu mocher, that a seller is a generous seller, and if Shimon sells his land to Reuven, he sells the entire land to Reuven, and even if he retains trees for himself, he only keeps the trees, but the land beneath would also belong to Reuven, and therefore Reb Shimon then applies that to hektish, to say that the land beneath the trees would also be hektish, and therefore the trees themselves become hektish. By the way, we're a good few minutes into the daf, and we were just catching up from yesterday, which I feel like this is why I generally try to find like a good stopping point where I can make a clean break, because otherwise you spend so much time just catching up from the day before, which is why sometimes, right, I'll like run an extra amud over or stop high up or whatever, because it just gives us a good clean place to start where we don't have to spend so much time catching up. Reminding ourselves what it's talking about, but this just wasn't. If we didn't stop where we stopped yesterday, we wouldn't be able to stop until we're stopping today, basically the end of the parak. And it's a long day. It's going to be a big one today. So whatever. I think it made sense. But yeah, just getting caught up was a whole avoda. Okay. So now frag the Gemara umimotzis mukmas la Reb Shimon Reb Akiva. So, but is that really the case that Reb Shimon is holding like Rabbi Akiva here? Veha Tanya, but we learn in a braise. Hikdish shlosha ilonis mimata asore lebeis sa'a. Okay, so if you have saplings, now the shear for saplings is 10 saplings in a beisa. A beisa is 50 amas by 50 amas, which is 50 times 50 is 2,500. We saw this recently, and there's 10 trees in there, so each tree be'etzim gets 250 amas worth of area around it. So now, so you have these 10 saplings in a beisa, and a person is makdish 3 of them. Okay, so again, Tanya hikdish shlosha ilonis mimata asor leveisaya. If a person is makdish 3 trees of these, 10 in a beisa, harei hikdish es hakarko v'seilonis shebeneim. So if a person is we've learned this before, that if a person is makdish 3 trees, so he's makdish the trees, but oichit the land beneath them and around them, and any trees that are any small trees that are between them. Okay, we can say lefichach kshu. There's another version uchshu. I'll just say uchshu. I don't know why. Uchshu podet. And when he redeems them from hektish, so because he was makdish the trees and the land beneath them zusammen together, podeh beis zerach chomer sorim b'chamishim shekel kesef. So they're all packaged together, the trees, the land, and when it comes to stay achuza, right? There's 2 types of fields, as we're gonna get into this a little bit later as well. That there's 2 types of fields. There's stay achuza. Stay achuza is your inheritance, the field of your family plot, so a stay achuza, right? If you live on your family's plot and you're makdish your field, so there's a fixed rate at which you redeem it from hektish, and that is a shekel and a pundian, which is a 48th of a shekel and a pundian per year. That is the rate per base core. So, okay, that's a fixed rate. Now, if we're talking about a stay mikne, meaning this isn't your ancestral land, rather you bought it from somebody else, so somebody else's ancestral land, and you bought it, and it goes back at Yovel. So you bought it, so it's a stay mikne, it's a land that you bought. So then you redeem it at its value, at its face value. So, assuming that this is a stay achuza, assuming that this is your ancestral lands, and you are makdish 3 trees, so then you makdish the trees and oichet the land surrounding them, and so you makdish the trees and the land together. So you redeem them at the rate that you redeem the land, which is a shekel and a pundian per year. Okay. So a shekel and a pundian per base core. Okay. So uchshepoda base serachomer sorim b'chamishim shekel kesef. So he redeems the gans geschäft for a shekel and a pundian per base core. Okay. So even though there's trees there, he just pays a shekel and a pundian per base core. Pachos mikan o yaser alkein. But if the shear was less, maybe it was 10 saplings in less than a base saw, or it is 10 saplings in more than a base saw. Well then, or it was 3 saplings in a base core, in a base saw, but he was makdish 1, and then the other, and then the other. So he wasn't makdish 3 at once, but rather 3, one after the other. So in that case, the land doesn't come together with it, right? So whether it was 10 saplings in less than a base saw, or in more than a base saw, or it was 1 tree after the next, well, in that case, the land is not included in the hektish of the tree. So then the land around the trees is not hektish, nor are the small trees between them. Lefichach kishu pode or uchshu pode es eilonis bishoveyen. So he doesn't pay the fixed price of shekel and a punjin per base core. Rather, he pays the current value of the face value of the trees in that case. V'lo od, and not only that, elo afilu ikdish eso ilonis. Rather, even if he was makdish 3 ilonis, one after, he's makdish 3 trees, one after the next, v'chosav ikdish is a karke, and then he was makdish the karke. So at the end of the day, you have 3 trees and the relevant land, but still kshupode pode soilonis b'shavein. Rather, but still, when he's pode the hektish, he's pode the trees at their face value, v'chozer pode base zerachom masorim b'chamishim shekel kesef, and then he is pode the land separately. So if he's makdish 3 trees tzazamen together, so then he's makdish the 3 trees as well as the land, and he's pode the whole thing at the fixed rate of the land. But if he's pode 1 tree and then another, even if later on he's then oichet, not pode, if he's makdish 1 tree, then a second tree, then another, even if later on he's oichet makdish the land, so at the end of the day, the net result is the same as the first way when he was makdish 3 trees. No, it's different. When he's makdish the 3 trees at once, then he could be pode the gans geschäft at the fixed rate of shekel punjin per base core. But if it's one after the other, even if he then is makdish the land as well, no, it's separate, and he would have to be poda the trees at face value, and then the land at the shekel fundin. Now the shaila is who's the author of this brayse. The shaila is who is the author of this brayse, because interestingly, what's the brayse saying? The brayse is saying is that pachos mikan v'yasar, or let's say, if he was makdish, let's say one tree after the next, so we're saying he's only makdish the trees. He's not makdish any of the land underneath. He's not makdish any of the land underneath. So Rabbi Akiva says, mocher b'ayin yafa hu mocher. Rabbi Akiva says, mocher b'ayin yafa hu mocher. And certainly hektish, right? So therefore, Rabbi Akiva would say if he's being makdish trees, of course he's being makdish not just the trees, but he's also being makdish the land underneath the trees. Now if he's being makdish the land underneath the trees at the same time, so then memele, you should be poded at the fixed rate of the land that he's being makdish together with the trees. And even the rabbis we saw in the Mishnah, had said that when you that the bama devarim were by a mecher, the rabbis say that like the pit and the wine press and the dovecote are excluded. But by hektish, by gifts, by hektish, they're included. So by hektish, it's ba'ayin yafeh. And therefore, they would also say that if you're makdish the trees, your archa can be makdish the land beneath them, in which case you should be able to be poded them, not at the face value of the trees, but at the fixed price of the land, because you're being makdish the land together with the trees. So who's the author of this Mishnah? Of this brayse? It's not Rabbi Akiva. It's not the Tanakama in the Mishnah by the hektish. So who is it? So Rabbi Akiva, if we want to say that the author of the Mishnah is Rabbi Akiva, though that can't be. That Rabbi Akiva says that mocher b'ayin yafeh mocher, and certainly by hektish, meaning if somebody's being makdish a tree, he's not just being makdish the tree, but also the land underneath it. And if that's the case, then he should be able to be poded at the fixed rate of shekel pundion for a base core. V'rabbanon, and if it's the rabbis in the Mishnah who argue with Reb Shimon, right now in Mishnah we had the Tanakama who said that when it comes to hektish, the pit, the wine press, the dovecote are included in the hektish. Reb Shimon had then argued and said, no, they're excluded from the hektish. The only things that end up being included are the carob and the sycamore because they're attached to the ground. So memela they end up being included, but no, they're excluded. But in principle they're excluded. So we see that the rabbis, the Rabbanon who argue on Reb Shimon in the Mishnah, they also say ba'ayin yafeh, that he's makdish ba'ayin yafeh. And therefore it includes the pit, it includes the wine press, it includes the dovecote, and it would include oichet. If he's makdish these trees, he would also be makdish the land underneath, again, in which case they should be able to be redeemed at the fixed rate of the land. So again, v'i rabbanon, and if the brayse says the rabbis, so amrei, they said in the Mishnah, mocher hu d'ba'ayin ra mocher, that bomed v'amur, when do we say things are excluded? By mecher, right? Right, that by mocher, ba'ayin ra for mocher, ba'ayin ra mocher. Avol makdish, but the rabbi said in the Mishnah that by hekdish, ba'ayin yafeh makdish, he's makdish ba'ayin yafeh, and therefore the pit, the wine press, the dovecote are included in the hekdish. And therefore, the land underneath the trees would also be included. So, Ela Pshita Reb Shimon he. So rather, who's the one who says that everything is excluded? Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon says that when you're makdish a field, the pit, the wine press, the dovecote are excluded. So therefore, he's also going to be the one who says here that when you're makdish one tree, then another tree, then another tree, it's only the tree, but not the land underneath. Only the tree, but not the land underneath it. Okay, and therefore you pose at the face value of the tree. Okay, fine. Sorry, I might say El Pshita Reb Shimon he. Okay, but now Reb Shimon aliba deman. But we're not done yet. We're not done. We're We're not done. We're not done. There's more. There's more. There's more. When we say Reb Shimon, like who? Like Shimon, like who? Reb Shimon, like who? Reb Shimon can't be saying in line with Rabbi Akiva, his Rebbe, because Rabbi Akiva would say that mocher b'ayin yafeh mocher, and certainly by hektish, and Reb Shimon is saying that he's makdish b'ayin ra'ah, and therefore it's only the trees and nothing underneath. Ha'omer mocher b'ayin yafeh mocher v'chol shkei makdish. Rabbi Akiva says that mocher b'ayin yafeh mocher, and certainly hektish, whereas Reb Shimon is saying that by hektish it's b'ayin ra'ah. Ela pshita aliba de rabbanon. Rather, it is according to the rabbis, but which rabbis? Which rabbis? Because remember, the rabbis in the Mishnah, is subtle. Who are the rabbis? When we say the rabbis, who's the rabbis? The rabbis are relative. If we're talking about Reb Shimon, so the rabbis, the Chachamim, if we're talking about Machlokas, Reb Shimon and the Chachamim, who's the Chachamim? Reb Yehuda, Reb Meir, Reb Yossi, Reb Elazar, his contemporaries. I think this is correct, and I think this is what's going on in the Gemara. And if you have Machlokas, Reb Akiva and the Chachamim, who's the Chachamim? I don't know. Maybe Reb Eliezer, Reb Yeshua, maybe Reb Tarfin, Reb Yishmael. Okay, I don't know. So it's, the Chachamim is relative, meaning it's if we have an opinion of one Tana versus the Chachamim, Mistam, it's the other people of his generation. And therefore, in our Mishnah, so Reb Shimon had said that when you're makdish, it's makdish b'ayin ra, the pit, the wine press, the dovecote are all excluded. But the Tanakama had said right before him, that actually, just like by a gift, the pit, the wine press, the dovecote are included by hektish. So those are the rabbis, those are Reb Shimon's rabbis. Those are relative to Reb Shimon, the Chachamim. So they say that by hektish, ba'ayin yafeh hu makdish, and it includes the pit, it includes the wine press, it includes the dovecote. So Reb Shimon's Chachamim are saying that right there, you're makdish ba'ayin yafeh. But remember, there was a machlokas between Rabbi Akiva and the Chachamim about his mocher b'ayin yafeh mocher b'ayin ra mocher. So we're saying that they would contend that just like mocher b'ayin ra hu mocher, so also makdish b'ayin ra hu makdish, and therefore it excludes the pit and the dovecote and the wine press. So Ella Pshita, 3 lines from the bottom of the Amud, Aliba de Rabbanon, rather Reb Shimon must be saying like the rabbis who argue with Rabbi Akiva and say that mocher b'ayin ra u mocher, and the same would apply to hekdish, that makdish b'ayin ra u makdish, and therefore the pit, the wine press, the dovecote are excluded, and also if you're makdish one tree and then another and then a third, only the trees are hektish, but the land beneath them are not hektish, and you would put at the value of the face value of the tree. Because of Reb Shimon, and that Reb Shimon holds ki heichi de mocher b'ayin ra mocher, that just like when a person sells, he's mocher b'ayin ra, so makdish nami b'ayin ra makdish u'mishayer ara. Okay, so when he's makdish, also he's makdish b'ayin ra'ah, and therefore when he's makdish the trees, he's only makdish the trees, but not the land, and therefore he's poded at the face value of the trees, not the fixed price of the land. But ve'ela kasha hol v'yonkin misteh hektish. Oh, but one second, we have a kasha. Maybe you were thinking this. Maybe you're being like, but Sruli, isn't it obvious that we have a problem here? What's the obvious problem here? The obvious problem here is that we're saying, okay, so if Shimon says that when you're makdish b'ayin ra, and therefore the pit is excluded, therefore the wine press is excluded, therefore the dovecote is excluded, therefore if you makdish 2 trees, you only makdish those trees. You're not makdish the land beneath them. But Chevra, what does Reb Shimon say in the Mishnah? Reb Shimon says in our Mishnah that if a person is makdish a field, so even though the pit, the wine press, the dovecote are excluded, the grafted carob and the pruned sycamore are included. Why are they included? Well, we say, well, technically they should be excluded, but the fact of the matter is they are planted in the ground and he was makdish the entire ground. But if we say that Reb Shimon says that makdish bain ra'ah hu makdish, well then if he's being makdish the field, but he's keeping the grafted carob or the pruned sycamore for himself, so then of course he's also keeping the land beneath them for himself. He's makdish bain ra'ah, and therefore the land beneath those trees belongs to Shimon, and therefore they're not nurturing from the hektish land, they're nurturing from their own land. So why should the grafted carob or pruned sycamore be hektish? If after all, Reb Shimon is all about makdish bain ra'ah makdish. What do you say? What do you say? It's a real daf, huh? So here we go. Elo Reb Shimon Divrayim Dirabanan Ka'amar Lehu. This isn't Reb Shimon's opinion. Remember, there's two Rabbanans. Reb Shimon holds like the Rabbanan who argue with Rabbi Akiva and say Mocher bain ra'ah hu mocher, and Reb Shimon applies that to hektish as well. He agrees with them. But he disagrees with the Rabbanan in the Mishnah who argue on him, with Reb Shimon, with his own Rabbanan, that they say makdish bain yofeh hu makdish, and Reb Shimon is replying to them, and he's saying, they're saying mocher bain yofeh hu makdish, and that's what they're saying, bain yofeh, and he's saying no, mocher bain ra'ah hu makdish. He's replying to them and saying, wait, my Rabbanon, you are being too liberal with makdish bain yofeh hu makdish. It doesn't include the pits, the wine presses, the dovecotes. That's too far out. It includes, Reb Shimon's arguing to the rabbis and saying, if you want to say makdish bain yofeh hu makdish, so limit it to the land. That when you're makdish land, so I would say makdish bain ra'ah hu makdish, and therefore the grafted carob and the pruned sycamore are excluded, and so is the land beneath them, and therefore the trees are not included at all. Now, Rabbanan, if you say makdish bain yofeh hu makdish, well, fine. So say that he's makdish the entire land. And even though technically the grafted carob and the pruned sycamore should be excluded, technically they should be excluded, but the fact of the matter is, if you, Rabbanan, want to say makdish bain yofeh hu makdish, and he's makdish the entire land, including the land beneath those trees, okay, so then the trees are going to end up becoming hektish as well. But it's limited to that. The pit, the wine press, the dovecote would be excluded. And that's what Reb Shimon is saying in the Mishnah. When Reb Shimon says in the Mishnah, that, what does he say? He says, Eino mocher ella, right? Where is it? Lo hiktish ella. Lo hiktish ella es achar v'amurka v'es asodana shikma. Reb Shimon is responding to the rabbis and saying, no, not everything's included in the hektish. Everything's excluded from the hektish. The only thing that would be included would be the grafted carob and the pruned sycamore, since he was makdish the entire field ba'ayin yofeh, so memela they're yonkin from the hektish. But that's it. So again, El Reb Shimon the Devarim, Dirabanan Ka'amarlu. Reb Shimon is in the Mishnah is only responding to his relative rabbis who are arguing on him. L'didi, look, according to me, I say makdish bain ra'ah hu makdish through and through. Ke'echi de mocher bain ra'ah mocher, makdish nami bain ra'ah makdish. Look, as far as I'm concerned, just like mocher bain ra'ah hu mocher, makdish bain ra'ah hu makdish, through and through. V'shayure mishayer, and everything is left over. The pit, the wine press, the dovecote, the grafted carob, the prune sycamore, as well as the land beneath them. But leditcho, according to you, that you say mocher makdish ba'ayin yofeh hu makdish, but okay, I mean, but die yesh gvul. There's a limit. That does not include the pit, the wine press, the dovecote. Sure, the land itself is entirely hektish. Even the land underneath the grafted carob and the prune sycamore, thereby making the grafted carob and the prune sycamore memela oichit hektish, because they're planted in the hektish ground. But oduli mia, admit to me, delo hektish ella charav amurkov v'sadon hashikma. Right? Agree with me that the only things that would end up being included are the grafted carob and the pruned sycamore, since they are nurturing from the ground, which is entirely hektish, since you hold makdish ba'in ra ba'in yafeu makdish. But everything else, the pit, the wine press, the dovecote would be excluded. They respond to him, nisht. Lo, shna, period. No. When we say makdish ba'in yafeu makdish, it's through and through. He's makdish the field ba'in yafa, but also the pit, the wine press, the dovecote, the ganze Zach. Gewaltig. Krib Shimon. Okay, so going back to that brisa, where if you're makdish, one tree after the next, so only the tree is hektish, not the land beneath. So we say that's Reb Shimon's opinion. But one second. Reb Shimon. We're saying that the brisa is like Reb Shimon. But Amos Seifa, but in that brisa it says at the end, V'lo od ella, afilu hikdish es oilonis v'chozu hikdish es sakarka. That even if he was podeh, even if he was makdish one tree, and then a second, and then a third, so we say that the land is not hektish according to Reb Shimon, just those three trees. But then he went and he was makdish the land around them and beneath them as well. So the net result is actually the same as if he were to have been makdish three trees. Ultimately, he was makdish three trees and the land beneath them. In kshu podes ailonis b'shaveyen v'chozo fode bezer chomesorim b'chamishim shekel kesef. Even though, yes, he has been makdish the trees and the land, but since he was makdish the trees separately, he has to be podeh the trees and the land separately. He can't just be podeh at the fixed rate of the land. He has to be podeh the trees at face value and then the land at the fixed rate. But the thing is, Reb Shimon, but if we're saying that the price is Reb Shimon, then I would have thought that Reb Shimon would say that he would be able to be podeh everything at the fixed price of the land. Even though he's makdish them separately, but he should be able to be podeh them zusammen. Lezo basar pidyin. We should go based on the time of the redeeming of the hektish, because there's basically two options. You can go at the time that you were makdish. If you go based on the time that you were makdish, well, it was makdish them separately, so it has to be part of them separately. But if what's important is the time of the redeeming of the items, well, at the time that he was redeeming them, he was makdish everything, the trees, the land. So if it goes based on the time of redeeming, well, then he should be able to just be makdish everything at the fixed rate of the land. Because we hold, right, we understand that Reb Shimon's opinion is that what's important is at the time of the redeeming, and at that time he was makdish the land as well as the trees. The Tana is learning about it. So if you have a father and the father owns the ancestral lands, his family's ancestral lands, and his son buys it from his father. Well, since he bought it, it's no longer considered a stei achuzah, it's considered a stei mikna. He purchased it. Okay, so therefore if he's makdish it as a stei mikna, so then he has to be podeh at face value rather than the fixed price of a stei achuzah. So, the ekdisha, he was makdish the field, the stei mikna. But then his father died. So now he inherited the field, and it's his family's ancestral field. So now it's a stei achuzah. It's no longer a stei mikna. So at the time that he was makdish the field, it was a stay mikna. But at the time that he's now going to come to redeem it, his father was dead, which means that it makes it a stay achuza. So where am I? So then, how do you know that we treat it kishas pidyon? That we treat it like a stay achuza. At the that it's being you put it at the fixed rate. That when it talks about a stay mikna and that you pay that you're paid at face value, it says stay miknaso asher lo mistay achuza. That is not a stay achuza. So the she'ein reuya lios stay achuza. A field that is never going to be able to be a stay achuza. But clearly this field that he bought from his father is a stay mikna that will be able to become a stay achuza. And when his father dies, it becomes a stay achuza. So Yotze says, oh, she'ein stay achuza. So it excludes this land, which is ultimately becomes a stay achuza. So therefore, if he was makdish the land when it was a stay mikna, but then his father dies and becomes a stay achuza, so he's poded as a stay achuza, like it is right now, b'shas pidyon. Div Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Shimon, that's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon. So we want to say that Rabbi Shimon says that we go based on shas pidyon. Rabbi Meir says, Rabbi Meir, minayin lokeach sodom me'aviv v'meis aviv v'achar kach hikdish. How do we know that that if somebody buys a property from his father, and his father then, so it was a stay mikna, but then his father died, so now it becomes a stay achuza, and then only after v'achar kach hikdish, and only afterwards was he makdish it. Once he was already a stay achuza, minayin shtei lefanav stay achuza. I don't know that we'll treat it like a stay achuza. Tamalomer ve'im es stay miknos asher lo mistay achuza also. That if he's that for it to be treated a stay mikna, it has to not be a stay achuza. So the she'ena stay achuza, yotzazo she stay achuza. Right. So it has to. So for it to be a redeemed as a stay mikna, it has to be a stay mikna. This is not. This is a stay achuza, and therefore, since right now it's a stay achuza, therefore he's poded as a stay achuza. Okay. Now there's a gos abacher that kind of makes things a huge mess, but okay. If either Rabbi Yehuda or Rabbi Shimon, I look at the Gos Abach, I guess, I don't know. It was just so messy that I don't even know how to read it, but okay. If either Rabbi Yehuda or Rabbi Shimon, I look at the Gos Abach, afilu echad ekdisha, ve'achar kach meis aviv, that even when he was first makdish it, when it was a stay mikna, but then afterwards his father died and then it became a stay achuza, have a stay achuza, we would turn it out, we would treat it as a stay achuza. So now skip to the end of the next line. How do they know that? How do they know this? How do they know that when the son buys, right, their opinion is that when the son buys the field from the father, so it's a stay mikna, then he's makdish it, then the father dies, he could be poded as a stay achuza. How do they know this? If they want to try to prove from the pasuk, that pasuk is non-committal. I don't know what the right word is, but it's right. Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon would want to explain it one way. Rabbi Meir explains it another way. It's not clear from the pasuk. If was from that pasuk alone, maybe the pasuk is meant to be explained like Rabbi Meir. Rather, lav mishum taz lebasar pidyon. Rather, it must be that simply Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon hold that we go based on pidyon, based on the time of the redeeming of the hekdesh, and at that time it was a stay chuza. And therefore, this is all to say that if we want to say that according to Rabbi Shimon it goes based on the time of pidyon, of redeeming, well then that brisa which we're arguing is Rabbi Shimon. But in that brisa it also says that at the time that he redeems the trees, even though he was also makdish the land, so at the time of the redemption it was the land and the trees, still you cannot be po to the gans geschäft at the rate of shekel ufundin. Rather, you have to be part of them separately. But I thought Reb Shimon says you go based on the time of the redeeming. So how could that price be Reb Shimon? So Rav Nachman by Yitzchak says Rav Nachman by Yitzchak le'olam ba'alma Reb Yehuda Reb Shimon lo as lebasar pidyon. No, look, in general it's not correct, it's not accurate to say that the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon is that we go based on the time of pigeon. That is not accurate. Specifically by Stei Achuza, Kra ashkechu v'darish they darshan the pasuk im kein lichtov kra ve'im es stei miknoso asher lo achuzaso. Right. I mean the pasuk says ve'im stei miknoso asher lo mistei achuzaso. Right. Is that what the pasuk says? Ve'im es stei miknoso asher lo mistei achuzaso. Right. It could have just said ve'im es stei miknoso asher lo achuzaso. What's mistei? Ina mistei achuzaso. My asher lo mistei achuzaso. Asher eina ru'uya leo sada. So this extra mistei achuzaso means that it needs to dafka be a field that is she'eina ru'uya leo stei achuza, that can never be a stei achuza yotza zosher ru'uya leo stei achuza. Okay, so I want to dash from the pasuk that since this is a field that he bought from his father and that it's fit to be a stei achuza, so therefore that's why he's able to, if he's makdish and then his father dies and now it's his and it's a stei achuza, he can be put it as a stei achuza. Because they found the pasuk and they made a drash from the pasuk, but in general they would not necessarily hold that we go based on the time of pigeon, and therefore that brisa could be Reb Shimon, that if he was makdish one tree, then another, and then a third, and then afterwards he was makdish the land. So he's poded them separately. He has to be poded the trees at face value, and then the land at the fixed amount. But we don't go mishas pigeon. That's not necessarily Reb Shimon's opinion. And from the fact that we're saying that the brisa is Reb Shimon, so clearly it's not Reb Shimon's opinion. Rav Huna says Rav Huna, Charav Amurkov, a grafted carob tree, V'sadan Ashikma, and a pruned sycamore tree, Toras Ilon Alav, Toras Karka Alav. They have, in some respects, they have the characteristics of a tree, but also the characteristics of land. Toras Ilon Alav, they have the characteristics of a tree. Teich the Aktish, Ozovin, that if he was Maktish or bought, Shnei Ilanus V'hai, 2 trees plus also one of, either a grafted carob or a pruned sycamore. So yesh lo karka. So it's 2 other trees plus one of these is 3 trees total, which means that when you buy 3 trees, so then you get also the karka that's around it. So it's treated like a tree in that sense. Toras karka alav, but it's also treated like like land. Tulom is davin agavara. Right? That we know that if you sell land, so the grafted carob, the pruned sycamore, are excluded because they're considered like their own land. They're not considered part of the land that was sold. It says, Omer sheyesh bo sa'asayim, a sheaf of grain that has 2 sa'as worth of grain on it. Toras Omer alav, it's treated like a sheaf. But Toras Gadash alav, but it's also treated like a pile. Toras Omer alav, it's treated like a sheaf. The Shnei Omarim shichacha, that if you're harvesting your field and you forget 2 sheaves in the field, so that's shichacha, you leave it for the poor people. But Shnaim Vahu, 2 sheaves plus this sheaf, so that ain't shichacha, then that's 3 already, and it's not shichacha, you can go back and collect it. Toras Gadish alav, and it's also treated like a pile, the Tanan that we learn in a Mishnah, Omer sheyesh bo sa'asayim, that if you forget just that sheaf, that has 2 sa'as, shichacha, eno shichacha, it would be considered like a pile, in that it would not be considered shichacha, and you can go back and get it. Rabbi Bachana says, Rabbi Bachana Amr Ishlakish, Charav Amurka v'sadan Ashikma, that when it comes to a grafted carob and a pruned sycamore, but in the machlokas Rab Menachem Reb Yossi v'Rabbanan, we get to machlokas Rab Menachem Reb Yossi and the Rabbanan, which is best in machlokas Reb Shimon and the Chachamim, in terms of are they included in the are they excluded from the hektish, like Reb Shimon says, or included like the rabbis say? Why don't you say that's machlokas Reb Shimon the Rabbanan? Why are we saying machlokas Reb Menachem Reb Yossi in the Rabbanan? Well, because we already know that that's a machlokas Reb Shimon the Rabbanan, as we proved in the Gemara. So Hakamashman to Reb Menachem Reb Yossi, Reb Shimon Tzvilei, what it's teaching us, therefore, Reb Menachem Reb Yossi is like the opinion of Reb Shimon, Hadjan Olach, Hamocher es Haboyis. Wow. That was a whole thing. Hamocher es Haboyis. Perak Hamocher Haboyis was kind of technical, but kind of interesting. I guess today we were really trying to understand that opinion of Reb Shimon. It ended up being kind of interesting. Reb Shimon holding that mocher ba'ayin ro'ah, mocher applies also to hekdesh through and through, and therefore that opinion of Rav Huna that we started with, that when a person keeps 2 trees for himself, he also keeps the land, could even be according to Rabbi Akiva as well. Right? Because initially we said at the end of the day yesterday, Reb Shimon holds like Rabbi Akiva, therefore therefore the land beneath the trees would be included in the would be excluded from the sale. But ultimately, we said that no, Rabbi Shimon doesn't hold like Rabbi Akiva, and therefore, what we want to say according to Rav Huna, which is that even Rabbi Akiva, when it comes to selling a field and leaving trees for yourself, would also include the land underneath. And then we explored Rabbi Shimon's opinion, which is Mocher Bain Ra'u Mocher, Makdish Bain Ra'u Makdish. Interesting stuff. Peace out.